In today's video, I'm going to teach you all about having a weed-free lawn in 2024. So let's get out of the weeds. Now this is going to be a two-part video breaking down the different types of weed control, beginning with a pre-emergent, and then part two I'll be talking about post-emergent weed control, taking care of some of those pesky weeds like dandelion. When it comes to getting started with your lawn in the spring, a lot of people think to go grab grass seed, start putting grass seed down, build up our lawn and get it ready to go. But I think that the best method to start your lawn off for the year is to get a good game plan for your weed control. Now, the reason I think this is important is because in the spring, as our lawns start to green up coming out of winter, the weeds in our lawn are also getting ready to fire up and start attacking our lawns. So what I like to do is really get a good strategy to take care of those because they can be a bigger problem. Personally, I like waiting to seed until later in the fall. The reason why you can't really do both a lot of times is because many of the weed controls that you're going to put down will stop the grass seed from growing. So a lot of the times you're doing one or the other, not typically trying to do both at the same time. In the spring, I like to push my lawn with fertilizer and also start to play some good defense by keeping some of the weeds from getting in my lawn. When it comes to weeds, there's typically broken down into two different categories: grassy weeds and broadleaf weeds. Grassy weeds are going to be referring to those weeds that look very similar to the grass that are in your lawn. So a lot of times it may at first be hard to differentiate between a grassy weed and the good grass in your lawn. When it comes to broadleaf weeds, those are typically way different looking. Their leaves are all different shapes and sizes. A lot of times they'll have different flowers and different colors. And so you can look in your lawn, ooh, that's not supposed to be there. Typically that's going to be a broadleaf weed. It's important to know that distinction because depending on if it's a broadleaf weed or a grassy weed is going to change the method that we use to get rid of it. When we're talking methods to get rid of weeds, we're typically going to be also broken down into two categories: pre-emergent and post-emergent. A lot of people, if you're new into lawn care, most of what you probably are thinking about with weeds is going to be post-emergent. You look at your lawn, you see weeds in the lawn, and you're like, I got to get something to spray on it. That's going to be post-emergent, so after the weed is already in your lawn. But I do want to talk about another one, which is the pre-emergent, which I believe is the most critical application that you're going to make in your lawn all season long. So when I talk about pre-emergent, it is preventing the weeds before they show up in your lawn. In general, most of them work where they're going to be creating a vapor barrier over your lawn. And so as you have a weed seed kind of in your soil and it wants to start coming up, it hits that vapor barrier and it prevents it from growing before you ever actually even see it in your lawn. The reason I like this is because putting down a pre-emergent can help take care of weeds that you didn't necessarily even know you had yet, and it can make what does pop up much more manageable. It's also critical because pre-emergent typically stops one of the biggest and toughest weeds that we see all year in our cool season lawns, and that is crabgrass. So as I said before with the distinction between grassy weeds and broadleaf weeds, another kind of generalization that I typically like to make, which it isn't all encompassing but is a good generalization, is typically when you're putting down a pre-emergent, a lot of those are going to be targeting more of your grassy weeds, whereas post-emergents are going to be targeting a lot more of your broadleaf weeds. Grassy weeds are typically harder to control once they show up, so that's why a lot of your pre-emergents are designed to take them out before you ever actually see them. So from my trip, I went and I got this Stonewall 007 crabgrass control. This right here is a pre-emergent mostly targeting crabgrass, and that's what they have listed on here. Because everybody knows crabgrass, a lot of the manufacturers put crabgrass on the front of it. But it will control more than just crabgrass, which I'll show you here in just a minute. I also got myself a little seed spreader. So what you're looking for as you're in these stores is don't fall for where the location of everything is. You're gonna walk in these stores and you're gonna be bombarded with different types of grass seed and weed and feed and fertilizers and so much stuff, grub control. Just know that the hardware stores don't necessarily put things out there as you need them. They just put a bunch of stuff out there hoping people will buy it. And so it's up to you to really kind of look in and to know what you need to get when you go there. Now, a very popular item that you will see in these stores is weed and feed. Now, me personally, I don't recommend going with a weed and feed because I like to separate my different applications. That way I'm able to target what I want to target specifically. When it comes to weed control, I don't want to just necessarily blanket my lawn with stuff that I don't necessarily know if I even have an issue with. And so a lot of times when you get into some of the weed and feed products that'll say it covers crabgrass, it covers dandelions, and it also gives your lawn nutrients. I don't typically like that because it seems like it's all in one and you don't necessarily know what you're doing. You're just throwing everything down hoping that it's working, as opposed to, hey, what's the health of my lawn? Where's my lawn at? And really understanding what your lawn needs. Because if you take a little bit of time just to understand your lawn and what it needs, it becomes very, very easy to know what to get and not have to do kind of these all-in-one products. So looking at the bag here that I had purchased, you can see that the active ingredient is prodiamine. Another popular active ingredient in Pre-Emergent is going to be dithiopyr. So those are typically two of the ones that you're typically looking for whenever you're going to be getting a crabgrass Pre-Emergent. When it comes to putting down a Pre-Emergent, soil temperature is everything. And what we're looking for is to get our soil temperature between 50 and 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, I'm not talking about outside air temperature, I'm talking about soil temperature. The easiest way to measure this is if you go to this Greencast website here, you can type in your zip code, put in your address, and you can get the soil temperatures for your area. Now you can go and drag and drop on a calendar and see when does it typically get into that range for my area. Once you see that time, it means it's go time. Get down a Pre-Emergent, and that way it has time to kind of get that vapor barrier established so it can start preventing the crabgrass from showing up in your lawn. Now, the reason why this 50 to 55 degree temperature is important is because this is the temperature that which crabgrass is going to start germinating, along with many other weeds. And you want to get that out now so that way you can stop it before it's too late. You don't want to get it down too late, and then that way they're already emerged and it's no longer going to be effective. As I look at the back of the bag here, these are the listed weeds that this particular Pre-Emergent controls. And so you can see it does a lot more than just crabgrass. It's just crabgrass is the most well known. Now when you flip the back of the bag of the Pre-Emergent over, it can look very, very complicated, but I want to kind of break this down simply. When you look at the back, it's going to give you a maximum rate. So anytime you're putting down an herbicide or something to kill any weeds in your yard, they're all going to have maximum application rates that you can do for the year. It's not something you can just go out every day and just keep putting this down and say, oh, I'm never letting another crabgrass get through. And so you have a max application rate. Now what you want to look on here on the back of the bag, it'll give you the spreader settings. And so that's critical what you want to look for. For our Pre-Emergent applications, I like to break them up into two separate applications. One application right as the soil temperatures are getting 50 to 55 degrees, and then about 2.5 to 3 months later, I do the second half of the application to give me kind of some more coverage later on into the year. What I do when I'm looking at the back of this bag is I look at the maximum rate that it says, and I just simply cut it in half. So as we're looking at the back of the bag here, you can see the 5.05 pounds. That's the max rate for the entire year. So if you go 2 columns to the left, you see half of that, which is the 2.52 pounds. So that's the rates for our half application. Now you simply just want to find the spreader that you have, and this is why I recommend Scotts spreaders starting out, because they're always on the back of bags. And you can see the Scotts rotary spreader, and it says the number to set it to, 4.5. Now I just come to my dial and I turn it until I get to 4.5, and once I'm there, now I just load up the hopper and go. Which also ties into kind of the size of your lawn, because if you know, hey, we're doing 2.5 pounds per 1,000 square feet, and I have a 2,000 square feet section of my lawn, like I happen to have kind of right back here behind me, I know I need 5 pounds of product total. And so you can kind of there have a safety net of yourself of like, okay, how much do I actually need to put down? So you can go and say, oh, I just need to put 5 pounds in this hopper, and if I only use what's in the hopper of 5 pounds, you'll never run the risk of over applying, as opposed to if this hopper held 50 pounds and I just dumped the whole bag in and I tried to spread it across the lawn. That's why it's critical to also know the size of the area that you're going to be applying any kind of product on. Couple things to remember. The timing is everything. So make sure your soil temperature is getting between 50 and 55 when you're wanting to put down the first application of your pre-emergent. Now you can put down the full bag rate if you want to in this one application. It's just more of a personal recommendation that you split it in half and do 2 separate applications, which I'll walk us through as we get further along in the season. The second thing is that pre-emergent applications need watered in to activate it. So you want to make sure, if you don't have any kind of irrigation on your lawn yet, which many of us won't this early in the season, that you try to time it up with when you're going to be getting some rain in the next few days. On this bag here that I have, it says within the first 14 days after application.